Welcome to the Shakaama Live Show with your host, Shakaama. It's me, Shakaama, and the lovely Anubis. Be sure to thumbs up the video or thumbs it down. It doesn't actually matter. Just give your opinion. We want to hear from you. It means that you're interacting with the video, and that's what YouTube and the advertisers love. Oh, and to help support the channel, we're trying to gather funds to have a movie quality computer to produce all of these as movies. I don't know if you know this, but all the big YouTubers have a staff of like 5 to 20 people, and they have script writers and all that sort of stuff, but you only see the YouTuber in front of the camera. Some of the YouTubers don't even know the people, like on a personal level, the people that they actually hire to work with them on YouTube. Here's the story. Man goes to prison for not paying child support on a kid that was not his. Now, let me start out by saying that this case is over 26 years in the making. That means this nightmare for this man went on for 26 years. I want everybody, men and women, to keep this in mind. A Detroit man was stopped at a traffic stop, and imagine his surprise when he's arrested. What's the charge? He is a deadbeat dad. That's the charge. You haven't paid child support. That's the charge. Stop. This man has no children. What's going on? A Detroit woman who dated this man years ago had a child with another man. When her funds were depleted, she went to the state for support. But in order to get support, the state doesn't give out money for free. Remember, the state doesn't actually make money. It takes it from you, the people. So she had to name someone as the father. So she put him down as the father. But hold on, Steve, we'll call him Steve, has been in jail for 5 years at the time for some other shenanigans he did as a teenager. Nothing serious. Don't get your panties in a twist. So let's calculate this so far. The state has Steve in jail for 5 years. The woman gets pregnant and has a child, all while Steve is in jail for 5 years. The woman, 3 years into Steve's sentence, goes and names Steve as the father of her child, now 3 years old. Actually, it was 2 years old. But hold on. Why was Steve arrested? Well, you see, when Steve was named on the welfare papers, they issued a court date notice and mailed it to Steve's house. When Steve didn't show up in court, he was made the default father, or the de facto father. I don't know if legal terms are too difficult for people to understand, so I'll just say he was made the default father from then on. The state then issued a notice of his child support requirements and kept sending notices of his child support requirements every month and mailing them to Steve's house. Now, have you been keeping track? Let's calculate the timeline so far. Steve is in jail. We're starting there, right? Steve has no house because Steve is in jail. Steve's ex moves on and has a few new boyfriends. Steve's ex gets pregnant. Steve's ex gives birth. Steve's ex goes broke. Steve's ex's baby is now 2 years old. Steve's in jail. Steve's ex goes to the welfare office, who tells her that she has to name someone as the father. Steve's ex goes through her little black book and finds Steve's name and remembers Steve and puts him down as the father. Steve is still in jail. The court sends a court hearing notice to Steve's house. Steve is still in jail. Steve, who is still in jail, doesn't show up to the court hearing. The court names Steve as the father, as the default father, because Steve didn't show up in court to defend himself. Why? Because Steve is in jail. The state starts sending Steve child support notices to Steve's house every month. The court issues a warrant for Steve's arrest for failure to pay child support. Steve is still in jail. A few years later, Steve gets out of jail. Steve gets a job, gets an apartment. Life is finally looking up for Steve, right? He's out of jail, everything's hunky-dory. Steve runs a stop sign and gets pulled over. Probably going to give me a warning. It'll be all right. He didn't see the stop sign. Steve gets arrested and told he hasn't paid child support, and warrant is out for his arrest. Steve doesn't have any kids. So how is there a warrant out for his arrest to not pay child support? Steve is wondering. Steve gets fired for being in the news, for being arrested, for not paying child support. Steve tells reporters he's going to turn himself in and go to jail because he's about to be homeless because of this story being broadcast in the news of him being a deadbeat dad. After seeing the story on the news, the National Family Group sent an attorney to Steve and had him take a DNA test along with the DNAs given to the child, which came up 0.0% paternity, which is almost unheard of because, believe it or not, most humans share DNA with each other. Doesn't matter the race, most humans have some shared DNA. So a 0.0% means that the mother and the real father of this child are probably foreigners to Steve's own ancestry. Although we're assuming that everybody in the case is black, right? We're assuming that the mother and the father are both black, and Steve is of course black. So it's kind of weird that Steve and this child share 0%. 0% is almost impossible. The state demanded $30,000 in back child support from Steve, who is now unemployed. The $30,000 I thought was outrageous until I understood. It finally came to through my research that the case is 26 years old, so they're asking for $30,000 for the entirety of the 18 years of the child. Steve was arrested when the child was like 20 years old, right? Michigan has no law for paternity fraud. A woman can name anyone on the birth certificate or in state documents, and the state will go after the man named on the document. Here's where it really falls down, is normally you have a court case and the man gets to defend himself and say, hey, I'm not the father, right? But in this case, Steve wasn't able to show up in court to defend himself at all. Why? Because Steve was in jail. Regardless of it's true or not, the state will only go after the man. Under Michigan law, there is no way to defend yourself against a woman fraudulently putting your name on state documents as the father if they finally make a determination. And those notices sometimes are posted on the court door. That's how you are notified of a court hearing. So just because Steve was in jail and they sent the notice to his house, don't be hoodwinked by that. Sometimes the notifications are not mailed to the house. They're posted on the courthouse steps, and that's it. That's your notification. So please don't get that twisted. The National Family Group says there are hundreds, if not thousands of men in jail who are not the fathers of children, having been fraudulently named as the father. They are in jail because some woman named them as the father. This is one of the many men's rights activist projects to get to the Supreme Court to fix nationwide. But feminist groups silence the issue wherever they can, and the feminist groups have been successful, while the men's rights activist groups are painted as being a woman-hating group nationally. And I have a couple of updates. The case is over 26 years, imagine that. And here's the first update. The case is from the 80s, and the $30,000 for all of the years missed. The child is now adult, and even the child said he wasn't the father, but the judge still ordered him to pay the child support to the state because he was too late. However, at every hearing he stated he was not the father, and the state ignored it. And here's the final update of the case. The case is over 26 years. An attorney picked up the case after hearing it on the news. The judge was outraged that the news carried the story and said that the news should be ashamed for besmirching the good name of the court. Here's an excerpt of the final interview. Cherika Harris, who's the attorney, says she did it because she is outraged by how the system treated Carnell Alexander. That is his real name. Quote, "You declared him a deadbeat. You garnished his wages. Take away his ability to make a living. That is an illegal taking. It is a violation of his constitutional rights," said Harris, the attorney. Attorney Harris is preparing to appear before a federal judge on Wednesday, which was a year ago, to argue that Alexander deserves to sue the state and Wayne County for violating his rights. She says the case is important to protect others. It is only as her suit has moved forward that Wayne County dismissed the child support case against her client. Alexander got official notice days ago, this is a year ago, that after a 26-year-long fight, he doesn't owe child support for a child that is not his. Let's stick a pin in this. So it's only after the attorney is starting suing the state in federal court does the state finally say, oh, well, maybe we made a mistake. Okay, maybe he doesn't owe the money. That is it. In most of these cases, it never ever comes to that because men can't afford attorneys. They're in these positions a lot of times because of money. This attorney is doing this on her good benefit, right? But of course, she's hoping to win the case, sue the state, and get lots of money for her clients, which she will get a part of, right? Smart cookie. It is only as her suit moved forward that Wayne County dismissed the child support case against her client. Alexander got official notice days ago that after a 26-year-long fight, he doesn't owe child support for a child that is not his. Quote, "So the judge has finally agreed with me that this shouldn't have been done," said Harris. "Today I am happy that the debt has been lifted, but I'm still hurt by what I have been through over 26 years, says Alexander, who is Steve. Mr. Alexander is Steve. So that's the final update on that. I don't have a final update on the federal court case of how that lawsuit proceeded. But can you imagine 26 years to have to deal with it? And he lost job. I mean, it was just a nightmare. It's not just that he owed the money or he was said to owe the money, but then they called him a deadbeat. They made him look like a terrible human being and nobody wanted to hire him. So then now he does become a deadbeat on society. And I don't believe the state gives money out to men. They give money out to women. They don't give money out to men. Trust me, I know this firsthand. Tell me what you think about this, even women. Now, according to the family group, the National Family Group, they say Michigan is one of the states that does not have paternity fraud as a law. I'm assuming then that there are other states with paternity fraud as a law. You should look that up in your particular state. When I tried to look for pictures for this guy, there were thousands of pictures when I put in man goes to prison for not paying paternity child support on a kid that was not his. So there are thousands of cases just like this out there. This is not some unique thing. So that means that women are putting men's names on birth certificate and state documents and welfare documents of men who are not Why are they doing this? Mainly because they feel, and this is, I watched a paternity court case TV show, right? And the judge says, mostly I get women who put the man's name on the birth certificate who they feel can pay the money. Doesn't matter about paternity at all. The women are scammers. And they're just putting down whoever. They're not putting down any truth. They're not putting down any biological evidence of anything. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to try and like the video and subscribe. I think this is lighthearted fun. I'm not making fun of anybody. Oh, by the way, the woman apologized to Steve after he found the woman and the child. And she apologized, and she said she didn't think anything of it. They just asked for her to put her name, and so she just put Steve's name down. She didn't think anything of it. Why not put down the actual name of the actual real father? I don't get it. Obviously, Steve is not well-to-do. He's in jail. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe they were so far distant on a distant path that she didn't know what his situation was. All right, thank you all for watching. You all have a nice day. Have a good life, men and women. I don't hate anybody. I love all of you. Bye-bye.